People will follow you if you give them a reason to. And that is the heart and soul of leadership. That's really the essence of leading yourself. And don't think about, giving them a reason as telling them something to do. Think about it from within. Like, how do I set the example for others? Be a victor in this life. And that's about, getting up and driving forward, regardless of what it is, man. We need to get away from, I'm so tired of race and gender and all these things, man. We're human. When we want to talk about race, it's the human race. I don't care what your gender persuasion is. I don't care, man, woman,
right,
homosexual, heterosexual, black, white. Just be great. Focus on how do we drive forward and help people in this life, and people will follow you.
Welcome my guest, Jason Redman. Jason is a retired Navy lieutenant who spent 11 years enlisted as a Navy SEAL and almost 10 years as a SEAL officer. Redman served multiple deployments throughout Central and South America pre-9/11 and Iraq and Afghanistan after 9/11. On September 13, 2007, outside Iraq, Lieutenant Redman's assault team came under heavy machine gun and small arms fire, and he was severely wounded in an ensuing firefight. While recovering at Navy Medical Center, Redman authored and hung a bright orange sign on his door, which became known as the Sign on the Door and became a national statement and symbol for wounded warriors everywhere. After completing 21 years, Redman retired from the Navy, and in 2013, he launched a speaking and coaching company, which he focused on inspirational presentations on leadership, teamwork, and the overcome mindset. Today, he helps individuals, companies, and teams get off the X and from life ambushes. He is also the author of New York Times bestselling memoir, The Trident, alongside his second book, Overcome, an Amazon bestseller. Well, Jason Redman, I did an intro to you at the beginning of this podcast. So first, I just want to welcome you on. This is an absolute honor. First and foremost, I must say, I want to thank you for your service and just all my appreciation and respect for serving our country. So bowing down to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So of course, we're going to go all into your story and why you teach what you teach today. But I want to just start off with asking you, what drove you into becoming a SEAL in the first place?
I grew up in a military family. My dad was military. My grandparents were on both sides were military. My great uncle was actually killed in the World War II. He was shot down over the Pacific. So from a young age, I just wanted to go into the military. Heard about special operations, Green Berets, long range recon patrols, Rangers, probably when I was about 12. I grew up in the G.I. Joe generation. So Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow were really cool to me.
That's funny.
And my dad was the one who actually told me about SEALs. He was airborne, a rigger, a jump master, and back all the way up, myself included, until the early thousands, SEALs went through U.S. Army Airborne School, like I did in 1995. So my dad said, hey, there were these guys that came through training with us. They were Navy Special Operations. They were called SEALs. He said, super tough, crazy. He said, good in the water. He said, and they say the toughest training out there. You should check them out. And I did, and there wasn't a whole lot of information about them in the mid to late 80s, as I was a young kid. And I don't know, all I could find was toughest training in the military, and these guys did some of the hardest missions out there. So that appealed to me, and I said, that's what I want to do.
And how old were you when you entered into the training?
So I joined the Navy when I was 17. When I was still in high school, I signed a contract. We did not have any direct pipelines for SEAL training back then. So it was a little bit of a risk. The recruiter basically said, hey, when you get to boot camp, you raise your hand and you say, there'll be a guy that comes around during boot camp and says, does anybody want to try out for SEAL training? And he said, raise your hand and go try out. There's your window of opportunity. And that's exactly how it happened. And obviously I had trained up to be ready for that screening test in boot camp. And I think there were maybe 11 or 12 of us that tried out. And I believe there were only 3 of us that qualified. And that kind of started the whole journey.
Amazing. Well, I know everybody listening knows the SEAL training is some of the hardest. It is the hardest training in the world. And I'm just curious because a lot of people think it's mostly physical strength, but it's much, much more than that. So I'd love if you could explain that because I want people to know really this is much more than being tough and like being able to handle, the hard shit. So.
Yeah, it is. SEAL training is definitely very, very physically demanding. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We estimate in Hell Week alone, you'll cover over 200 miles. You will, I don't even know, thousands and thousands and thousands of push-ups, and they count bodybuilders and mountain climbers, and you'll swim miles and miles, and you'll row your boat. You'll row your boat alone just around Coronado Island during Hell Week, much less the amount of paddling you do right off the coast. So that's just 1 week of training. Now, granted, the toughest week of training in all of SEAL training. But you're absolutely right. There are a lot of people who show up to SEAL training who are incredibly physically fit. I remember when I was going through training, there was a lot of buzz with the instructors because there was this Navy triathlete who was ranked like one of the top triathletes in the world. And he was a naval officer, but he did triathlons for the Navy. And this guy was going to come to SEAL training. So here's a guy who's obviously phenomenally fit, like Olympic level fit. And I remember the instructors talking about this guy coming, and yeah, he lasted about 2 weeks and quit.
Wow.
So it's up here and it's here. I mean, those are the two things that make the difference. And that really is the foundation of SEAL training. I mean, combat can push you way beyond what you physically can do. And unfortunately, your teammates still have to depend on you to keep going, even when your body says, I can't go any further. The night I was wounded is definitely an example of that. And that's really what makes SEALs. I mean, a lot of kids show up with this.
Yeah.
But this is where it matters.
Right. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard that our body will give up before our mind actually does. So it's really having that mental fortitude to continue on and push through. And of course, we'll get into your story, but I just want to ask, like when you were in SEAL training, I mean, I think I've heard you talk about this on other podcasts that, it crosses everybody's mind, like to ring the bell, to quit. Right. But what pushes you to keep going? Like if you had those moments yourself, what pushed you to the next step to just continue on?
I think some of it was just young and dumb.
Like,
hadn't been exposed to it. Yeah, I hadn't been exposed to too much of the world. So I had although that sometimes backfires against you. I think there's a lot of young men that go through training that the one component of training that I think really gets people the most is the level of how unfair training is. They will tell you exactly the amount of time you need to do something or the number you need to do or whatever it is. And then they'll fail you even though you made that. And that's hard for some people to wrap their head around. They can't get past, the victim mindset and the that's not fair mindset definitely makes a lot of guys quit and leave. And what they're trying to show you is that, hey, combat is unfair, unequivocally unfair, and you can't quit. So, but for me, I think what kept me going is I wanted to be a SEAL. And I remember at one point in Hell Week, I was ready to quit. I was like, this sucks. It was Thursday night. We had been losing everything. We kept getting punished. Every time you lose, you get extracurricular activities for being a loser. And we have a saying, it pays to be a winner. The winners get a break and the losers get extra credit. So, and I remember that was happening on Thursday night. And I was like, this sucks. Like I've had enough. But I remember I stopped myself and I was like, you know, if you quit, you don't become a SEAL.
Right.
And that's the bottom line. And life is often like that. So often we get caught up in the discomfort and the pain and the short-term misery, and we fail to look further down the road. Hey, if I can endure this a little longer, I can accomplish my goal. And that's pretty much what I focused on. I said, hey, you just got to last a little longer. And then thankfully that evolution ended after, I don't know, 5 or 10 more minutes. And I managed to keep going.
That's so amazing. Yeah. I mean, it so applies to life. Like you have to obviously see like what's your end mission, like your end goal, and not to get so sidetracked by the, you know, the temporary discomfort, if you want to say, because nothing lasts forever, hopefully, and you could overcome. So we'll go deep into that. But of course, I want people to hear more about your story and your service. And of course, you know, you endured a catastrophic injury in battle with the enemies. So I would love if you could kind of share that. Of course, I want people to know more about that and, you know, what then transpired.
Yeah, it was, and I'll just caveat. I've got an interesting story that for those that don't know my story, you know, it's really my book, The Trident, is a story of failure and redemption. So it's a leadership story that's heart and soul. It's how anyone can come back from failure. It's how anybody can come back from setbacks in this life. You know, once again, it doesn't come down to this. It was this and this that kept me to be able to overcome my own shortcomings. And it was that interesting road coming back from that failure as a young leader where I had fellow SEALs said, hey, I don't want to work with this guy. He's dangerous. He's immature. He's got a big ego. And it took a couple of years to really grow up and come to grips with what it is to be a leader, especially a leader of individuals into combat situations where their lives are on the line. But the interesting thing about that journey, probably the hardest journey I've ever walked, is it set me up for success for those severe battlefield injuries. I had gotten my career back on track. You know, I was on my way. And right at the very end of our deployment in Iraq in 2007, my team and I were going after a senior Al-Qaeda leader outside of Fallujah. And we walked into a very well executed ambush. I was shot at least 8 times that we know of between my body and body armor. 2 rounds in the left elbow that in the moment I thought had shot my arm off. And then I caught a round in the face that did severe damage to pretty much the entire right side of my face. Blew out my cheekbone, broke what was left, kicked it out to the right. I lost almost all of my nose, broke the head of my jaw, shattered my jaw to my chin, broke all the bones above my eye, vaporized my orbital floor, damaged my eye muscles. So pretty severe injuries. The gunfight was very intense. It was about a 40-minute gunfight, and I owe my life to my teammates. My team leader ran forward at one point through enemy fire and managed to get me back to a tractor tire, what we call cover, something that will stop bullets. Got me back there and managed to get a tourniquet on my arm. And him and my other teammates continued to fight back. And then ultimately we ended up calling in what we call a fire support mission from an AC-130 gunship up overhead, which ended up being the closest fire mission in the entire Iraq war. We literally brought rounds down directly in front of us and miraculously survived. We managed to get out of there. And like I said, I owe my life to that gunship. So 4th SOS, much love. And to my teammates who really fought back and enabled me to still be here. Oh, and I also owe my life to the military medical professionals. A lot of the unsung heroes of war are our amazing doctors and nurses and corpsmen and medics that see our young American warriors at their worst. They see us blown to pieces, blown up, burned, and man, they do everything in their power to save us. In this current war, they had almost a 90% success rate. If you showed up with a pulse, you had about a 90% chance of coming home alive. So anyways, thank you.
That's
to all of them.
remarkable. I mean, just that alone. So there's so much to your story. So of course, I want people to read your book, The Trident, which you go into your story. And then also, of course, other podcasts. You share a lot online. So I want people to definitely research you more to find out more about your story and what it entails, because that alone is remarkable. The surgeries you went to, that to be able to save your arm, and also the recovery of your face and everything. So it's remarkable. But one pivotal moment that you had in the hospital, I really want to pull out. This is something that actually became viral because the message was so powerful. I love it. I think you could buy the print or something, but anyways, I think the message is so powerful because this message alone was just you really switching from, if you want to say, a victim mindset into a victor mindset. So can you share what that message was when you were in the hospital room, and why were you inspired to write this?
Yeah, I'd been in the hospital for probably, we estimate 7 to 10 days, give or take. And I'll be honest, as with anybody that's gone through something catastrophic, what I call a major life ambush, where your world has been rocked upside down. I define a major life ambush as anything that will leave permanent physical, mental, emotional, or deep financial scars, and usually a combination of multiple. And like I talked about at the beginning, I had come back from this really tough leadership failure and built myself back up, built back my credibility, built back my respect with my teammates, and had gotten everything back on track to, in the blink of an eye, laying in a hospital bed to have doctors telling me, hey, we're thinking about amputating your arm. You have no use of your left hand. You've got massive nerve damage. You are trached. You are wired shut. We're feeding you through a stomach tube. And we're talking years to put you back together. And I remember laying in that bed thinking to myself, so let me get this straight. My one, it's not fair. I did, for the last 2 years, I have grinded and I ignored the haters and the naysayers that said, we don't want you. You're not a good SEAL. You're not a good leader. And I built myself back. And right when I get my life back on course, I get everything ripped out. And I'm told, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so I'm going to be permanently disabled. I'm going to be forever disfigured. And my special operations career is over. And it was about that time that I'm wrestling with all of this that I had some people come into the room, and they were just talking about what a shame and what a pity. We send these young men and women off to war. And I think, and I have to caveat, some people get angry at this. But you have to understand, if you've ever been in a military hospital during time of war, it is a very hard place to be. Young war battlefield injuries are very catastrophic. They do devastating damage. So you see young men and women who are literally ripped apart. And I know that's overwhelming for the average person that comes there. So they were having this pity-filled conversation. And I'm at this, this nexus point on where do I go from here? And what was interesting, and this is why I really challenge people to embrace discomfort, embrace the hard road, embrace adversity, embrace the challenges you encounter in your life, because they are going to build you up and make you better. And you'll be able to look back on them and say, hey, I've been through hard times. I can endure this too. And that's really what kind of happened in that moment. As I lay in that bed, I was like, you know what, man, you just finished walking the hardest road you've ever walked. You dug yourself out of the deepest hole you've ever been in, and you came back. So guess what? You have a choice. In life, the greatest gift you have is you have a choice. Nobody forces you to lay there and feel sorry for yourself. Nobody forces you to be the victim, which is COVID's not the pandemic we're encountering in our country. It's the victim mindset. It's how can I out victim you, or how can I be the bigger victim in this story? And man, that's the wrong narrative you need to be telling yourself. It's how do I be the bigger victor? How do I figure out how to drive forward? And it is a choice. So in that moment, I said, dude, get up. Like, you may not be able to physically get out of this bed right now. You're too weak for that. But a huge part of leadership is just positivity in the face of negativity. It is looking at others when the odds are stacked against you, when there's no hope, and saying, hey, let's go, we got this. And it was in that moment, that's what I said. My wife came back into that room and I said, hey, let me have my paper. And I wrote out this sign and it said, attention to all who enter here. If you're coming in this room with sadness or sorrow, go elsewhere. The wounds I received, I got in a job that I love, doing it for people that I love, defending the freedom of a country that I deeply love. I will make a full recovery. What is full? That's the absolute utmost physically. I have the ability to recover, and then I'll push that about 20% further through sheer mental tenacity. This room you're about to enter is a room of fun, optimism, and intense rapid regrowth. If you're not prepared for that, go elsewhere. And I told my wife, hey, put this on the door. Nobody's allowed into the room until they read this and understand it.
I love that. I love it so much. I feel like we should all have that on the front of our doors. It's just remarkable. And I love that you shared that message. And I think that empowers people in general to be in the position you were, if you want to stay in a hospital bed, which I know, like you were mentioning, so many people will share, their sorrow for you, like, oh, poor you, but that mindset that you shifted into is so empowering. That's the way we should look at, as you were mentioning, the whole pandemic. So much over the last 2 years has been this victim mindset, and it's literally holding people down. And we've seen it in all the different things that are going on, as far as Black Lives Matter, as far as, we could list on and on about all these things, and it's really keeping people stuck. So I want to start to move into this. How does somebody begin to switch out of that victim mindset when, let's say, they're in the hardest moment of their life? Like, what would be the first thing you say?
Well, first thing is, you have power over you. As long as you don't live in a country, that's what's so amazing about the United States of America, and it frustrates me. And anyone who lives in another country. I recently did Tom Bilyeu's Impact Theory, and I talked about how great America is. And Tom has millions and millions of followers, and obviously
so do I.
has
No, okay.
internet. Oh yeah, well, absolutely. So if there are any international followers out there, I am not knocking your country. Please don't think that. But I have been all over the world. I have been in some of the most remote, repressed, oppressed, dangerous, violent places on this planet. And America has built something that is unique. Now, we are losing that slowly. We're slowly giving it away. But the greatest thing that made America unique was it was built on this idea of self-leadership and your ability to drive forward and overcome, sacrifice, resilience. These were the foundations that built our country. And that is slowly being eroded. And there's this narrative out there that that's not true. We're a terrible country. No country is perfect. People want to immediately bring up slavery. Yes, slavery was a blight on the face of America. But guess what? Look at the amazing visionary thinkers like Abraham Lincoln that said, hey, you know what? We're not going to tolerate this anymore. The Emancipation Proclamation and desegregation, all these things that came along. So now you don't have an excuse. There's nothing there. You should be able to drive forward. And that's where self-leadership makes the difference. It's you saying that I'm going to get off this X, whatever adversity, whatever lie, whatever you're being told by others around you, you have the ability to drive forward. In this nation, nothing stops you from getting up and leaving. It may be hard. You may be scraping nickels to figure out how to do it. You may be hitchhiking. I don't care what it is, but nothing stops you. And that it starts with you. The only thing stopping you from achieving greatness here is you.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I love that. And of course, you talk a lot about this overcome mindset, or this mental toughness, as some SEALs like to call it. So how does somebody, because I'm sure a lot of people are hearing your story, they're like, you train for this, you're a tough guy, you're built for this. How can the everyday person take your lessons and what you're speaking about and develop this overcome mindset? And I know you mentioned like get off the X. So if you could kind of touch on that, what does the X mean? And then how does somebody start to really train this to overcome the hardest, most obstacles they've ever endured?
So the X is it's a special operations and military vernacular jargon. And what it denotes is the point of attack. And so if you take it from a SEAL perspective, my whole career, one of the major jobs that the SEALs do is something called direct action, meaning we are taking the fight directly to the enemy. And oftentimes that would become something we call a capture kill mission. We wanted to capture a bad guy or kill a bad guy. In order to do that, we had to place them in a very specific location so that we knew where they were. And we called that location the X. So if a gunfight or a sniper attack suddenly broke out or an ambush, that became the X. And what I came to find as I got wounded and started to move forward and was dealing with my own mental, emotional, and physical issues, I was starting to meet other wounded warriors and all kinds of people that have been through major traumatic events. And I began to realize, holy smokes, man, everybody gets on the X. We all get stuck. And like this idea that the military uses, like how if you are attacked, by whatever, ambush, sniper fire, machine gun fire, you have to get off the X as quickly as possible. The longer you stay there, the more fire you sustain, the easier it is for the enemy to close on you and finish you off. And life is no different. I meet so many people who, whatever bad thing happens to them, whatever adversity, or even the mental lies they tell themselves, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're too, I call it the myth of twos, too small, too skinny, too fat, too gay, too straight, too girly, too manly, too much of a man, too much of a woman. I don't care. Too black, too white. It doesn't matter. It's all the lies that are in your head that pin you to that X and tell you, well, I can't do this because I'm too this or too that. So you have to get off the X. No different than my teammates and I got off the X. In life, when you get hit by one of these life ambushes or you get hit by a mental ambush, your first thought should be, how do I get off this X and drive forward? So if you want to build an overcome mindset, it's doing that. It's getting off the X and it's doing the things that you don't think you can do. Nothing builds an overcome mindset faster than if you can't swim and you're afraid of swimming, get out and swim. Learn how to swim. Go take lessons. Because the discomfort of having to do that physically is going to build an overcome mindset. But bigger than that, this is where an overcome mindset truly gets built. So if you're afraid of public speaking, you should be public speaking. Yeah, if you're afraid of heights, you should go do some rock climbing.
I'm all about what you're saying. It's so true. Like you just got to do it. You just got to do it. Put yourself in that space.
If you're afraid of leadership, you should be raising your hand and saying, I want to lead. And you're going to be terrified. You're going to be quaking. But that builds an overcome mindset faster than anything else. And I'll tell you something, you can never turn on the overcome mindset after the fact. You can a little bit, but it has to be built somewhat ahead of time.
I completely agree. So looking at your shirt for anybody that's watching this on YouTube, so he has on his shirt, no bad days. I would love if you could share why is that your tagline and explain like how can we really take that message and apply that to our lives.
So can you see this pretty well?
Yes, that's your skull, huh?
That's my skull.
Wow.
So this was drawn straight off the CT scan. Now the bullet hole in the forehead was actually in my helmet, which is a miracle in itself that I don't have brain damage. But the damage to my face was literally taken straight off the CT scan. A teammate described it best. He was like, it looks like somebody hit you in the face with an axe. When I look at that now, and now we've created an entire No Bad Days clothing line and all this. When I look at it, I think to myself, why am I still here? I shouldn't be. Doctors told me it was a miracle I survived. I have so many amazing teammates who were far better SEALs than I was, who are no longer here. And that gives me tremendous perspective. So one of the problems in America right now, in my opinion, we have a perspective problem. We have a lot of people who think, oh, woe is me, and this world is bad, and the world's against me, and I'm a victim and all that. You just need better perspective. I look at my skull and it gives me great perspective because it reminds me I'm still here. Teammates of mine and their families would give anything to still be here, to have their husbands here, their sons here. And I'm still here. So I hear people all the time use the phrase, "Oh my God, I had a bad day." And it drives me crazy because the 99% of the time when I'm like, "Hey, tell me about your bad day," like, I want to
Yeah.
hear it. It's like nothing. They're like, "Oh my God, they misspelled my name on my Starbucks cup," or, "I had a flat tire on the way to work," or,
Traffic.
"My alarm didn't go off, traffic." Yeah, whatever. I didn't, I don't know, whatever it is. And they're all things that are, in my opinion, just schedule disruptions at at worst. And at best, they're just something that makes you a little better because you're dealing with a little adversity. So I now have a saying, no bad days. If you woke up alive this morning, it is a good day. If you are still breathing, this life is finite. The only guarantee we have in this world is someday we're going to die. And that sucks. I mean, it's a hard thing to wrap your head around, but you need to own it because your days are numbered. You never know when you're going to go. So if you woke up this morning, you should be like, yes, it is a good day. It's up to me to make it a great day. What can I do to drive forward and start making changes and, moving the needle in my life? It doesn't mean sometimes you're not going to have hard days or tough days. But hey, man, if it's not a major life ambush, no bad days, baby.
I absolutely love that. It's all about gratitude. Like you said, looking at your skull, you're grateful. Like, I'm alive. This is just proof that, I endured something, that now I'm alive. You live in total gratitude every single day because of that. So I think that's remarkable. And I think that's so important that people need to have this reminder, whatever it may be, like waking up, just breathing, being able to move your body. I mean, you're blessed, right?
Amen.
God. Yeah. So
Amen.
yeah, really. So a lot of SEALs talk about this, never quit, right? There's that saying, never quit. So I'm just curious, for anybody that's, going after this goal in life, it's very easy to have obstacles that they're going to endure on the way to their goal, right? So how does somebody really, keep going after their goal, and not quitting, but also knowing when to quit, like when it's not the right thing to pursue? Because that's the other thing that, I know it's hard for, especially people that have, this strong ego. They're like, no matter what, I'm going to get this. But sometimes we must, I think you call it as fall back instead of quit.
Absolutely. And
I
this is
studied you
something
a
that,
little bit.
yeah, no, I appreciate it. My concepts. And this is something that I had to grow up into. I will admit, when I was a young SEAL, I had the idea I will never quit no matter what. And the problem is I watch people who follow this to a fault. Um, I'll give a perfect example. Not that a few years ago, we had two SEALs, two combat veterans, younger guys, combat veterans. I think both of them had done at least one or two combat tours. And they were training at our SEAL training pool. And they got to the end of their training and they decided to do breath holds, 15-foot breath holds. They were holding a 10-pound rubber brick. And they both were down on the bottom of the pool and their egos got in the way and the never quit mindset got in the way. And they both blacked out and passed out. And they both drowned and died.
Oh
Um,
my goodness. I'm so sorry to hear that. That's nuts. Okay.
well, it's an example of where ego, and God bless their souls. I did not personally know these guys, but I remember hearing the story, thinking to myself, what a waste. What a shame, that these guys let their ego get in the way. And this idea that I will never quit no matter what, that I'll push myself to my death. Don't get me wrong. There is a time and place for this. In a combat scenario, if you're going to save your family, if people's lives are on the line, this is where you push yourself to death. But other times we have to be smarter. And this is where I started to come to understand that sometimes, it is the smarter decision to quit, if you will. And I don't want to describe it necessarily as totally quitting. Quitting, in my opinion, is stopping something because you're uncomfortable or you're afraid or whatever. It's a judgment decision you're making in the moment. And what I try and tell people, especially guys going through SEAL training, never quit during the middle of an evolution. If you're struggling, if you're in pain, if you're hurting, Do not quit then. Like, get to the end of the evolution. And if you still want to quit by the time you get to the end of the evolution, if you've had some time to think and you've reduced the pain and the discomfort, at that point, you need to decide, do I really want to be here? But if you quit in the moment, that's quitting. In life, oftentimes we meet so much adversity and the pain and discomfort, and we want to quit, but maybe we're not making any more forward momentum. Maybe, as a matter of fact, we're starting to physically deteriorate, mentally deteriorate. If you look at it from a business perspective, maybe we're losing money, people are quitting, we're losing assets, whatever it is. This is a time where we fall back. We stop what we're doing. We step away from, whatever the point of the crisis or whatever we're grinding against. And I call it the rule of R. So number one, we pull back, we rest. So that's one of the first things we want to do. We want to rest. We want to reduce that stress, we relax. So we relax, then we rest, and then we reassess. So now we reassess, is what we're doing really where we still need to be going? If it is, then obviously, then we reattack. If it's not, we need to reevaluate. We need to reevaluate where we're going. Because the interesting thing about this process is, hypothetically, let's just say we're grinding against a wall to get through this wall. And man, we've just been beating our heads against the wall. We've been trying to dig under it. We've been trying to, beat our way through it. And we can't figure out how to climb over it. And we're all stressed and tired, and people have collapsed and maybe even possibly died trying to get through this wall. So finally we decide, okay, we're going to relax. We're going to rest. We're going to fall back, and we're going to reassess. And all of a sudden we pull way back like 100 yards, and we're like, holy shit, 500 yards down the wall, there's a door.
Yeah, exactly.
So sometimes by changing our perspective and reducing the amount of stress we have on ourselves, or we decide, oh, maybe there's a total different direction we need to go. So that kind of came about as I got older, but I think smarter individuals do this. We have a saying in the SEAL teams, don't run to your death, or don't have such a big ego that it takes you to your death, whether it's in business, whether it's in your relationship, or whether it's physical.
I think that's so great. That's so true. The reassess, I think, is an important aspect, of course. And like every step you said is so critical, especially to people that are feeling such immense burnout going after what they're trying to pursue. So I think it's so great to not get so like stuck, like so egotistical that you need to like keep continuing pounding at the door, and when you're just not getting anywhere. So I think that's so powerful. As far as I know, one of the things that also SEALs talk about is the preparation and preparing for a mission. So how can somebody take that and apply it to their life? Like, what would you suggest when somebody does have something they're trying to accomplish, a mission in life? How should they best prepare for that? What would you like? Is there certain steps that you would say to guide them?
So, I often talk about the overcome mindset is built on two components. The first one is preparation and awareness. So whatever goal you're going after, preparing is really building awareness. Maybe it's educating yourself. Maybe it's understanding what are the different roads I can go down. Who are people that I can put on my team that maybe can help me? And maybe it's nothing more than an accountability partner. Maybe I'm trying to go for this big physical goal, and I have a training partner, but bigger than that, I have an accountability partner. Or, maybe, I need to go take lessons in something to make myself better. Or maybe I need more certifications to reach this next level. So that's the first phase. It is that research. It is grinding. It is putting in the work on the awareness and preparation side. Step two, though, is action. You have to take action. Because there are a lot of people who they'll research themselves right to death, but then they never take action. They gather all these ideas, but we never take action. So the second step is you have to take action. If you don't take action, you're never going to accomplish what you're going after. And probably one of the big failures that I see in a lot of people when it comes to goal setting and taking action, they do all this awareness and preparation, and they want to go from here to here. And it's too big a step in the beginning. This is why New Year's resolutions almost never work. Most people, they haven't worked out 5 days, the entire last year, and suddenly they decide, I want to be a muscle, I want to be on the cover of Muscle and Fitness by January 31st. So they go into it really fast and hard, and they're working out every day, and they're watching their calories, and they're eating healthy. And by the time they get to January 20th, they're tired, they're burnt out, their body hurts, and they're like, man, I don't even look anywhere close to Muscle and Fitness. This sucks. I'm going to quit. And they do.
Right.
They quit. They go back to their old ways. When we take action, it needs to be very small, actionable steps. And we need to understand the reality of how long it's going to take. A buddy of mine, Bedros Koulian, says it normally takes.
I love Bedros.
Oh, he's awesome.
He's great.
We've become good friends. And what does he say? He said normally it's going to take twice as long, and it'll probably cost twice as much.
Yeah.
So if you have a mindset of that going into it, like, hey, this is going to be hard. There's going to be problems, but it's consistency and discipline, and just, knocking out these little goals one at a time, taking the action that will get you to where you want to go.
Actually, let's talk about that, because I think that's a good thing to point out, that I've heard you touch on that or actually SEALs in general, when you're going on a mission, you assess the worst that could happen. So I'm curious, if somebody were to apply this in their life, should they be thinking about the worst that should happen so they could prepare for those possible failures, if you want to say failures, that will come along the way, or the obstacles, so they know how to deal with it? Like, is that the good approach, or is that possibly going to be counteractive and weigh somebody down because they're thinking the worst that could happen? You know what I mean?
I live my life this way. And some people say, wow, you're awfully dark. But I'm not dark. I'm super positive. But I'm also a realist. I live in the world of reality, not in the world of what I wish it could be. And the world of reality says, hey, no, absolutely not. You settle.
What type of dog do you have?
Karma's my service dog. He is a long-haired German Shepherd.
Nice.
So no. Sorry about that.
No worries. For the virtual world.
Yeah. So in the real world, bad things happen to good people. And no matter how well you plan, no matter how much money you have, no matter how great your team is, no matter how great a leader you are, things can go totally wrong. And in the blink of an eye, you could lose everything. You could lose your health, you could lose a loved one, you could lose your business, you could lose your home, whatever it is. So I frequently think about all of those things. I don't dwell on them. What I do is what would happen if I lost my wife? My wife is my best friend. She's my business partner. God forbid I ever lost her, but I've at least thought about it a little bit. I think about the insurance policies we have in place. I think about, how am I going to drive forward if that was to happen? What happens if I get a disease? What happens if my business, so whatever happens if speaking, suddenly, my main business was to go away overnight. I actually got to experience a little bit of that in 2020. Yeah. I also think about, it's weird times. The government's doing some weird things. My safety net is my retirement income. I worked 21 years. I served in this military, going all over the world, sacrificed my body for that retirement pay. I think about, well, what happens if the government someday in the future decides, hey, you know what, guys, it was great that we paid you, but we've decided we're no longer going to pay you. So I'm putting things in place in my life that if that was to ever go away, which I God forbid, I hope it never does. I mean, but if it did, I want to be ready for it. So I don't lose my mind and dwell on every day, like, oh my God, what if I lose my retirement pay? Or, oh my God, what if I lost a child? But I think about them enough that I at least have the rudimentary start of a plan that if it happens, I'm not so overwhelmed that I cannot take action. I at least have thought through some of the basic steps. And this is what I encourage people to do. That is an overcome mindset. That is a mindset that no matter what happens, no matter what life ambush comes along, I've at least given it a little bit of thought that I can take action against. And that's really what I learned in the SEAL teams. Frequently, we talked often about, what if this happened on a target? What if that happened? And we would say, well, this is what we're going to do, or that's what we're going to do. Frequently, either those things would never happen, which was usually more common, or not only would they happen, they'd be 3 or 4 times worse than what we actually imagined. So at least we kind of had a base level, and then we were able to build upon that in the moment and drive out. And I feel like that's how life is. You can't spend your entire life planning for what if, unlikely scenarios. But if at least you put a little bit of time and effort into, well, I don't want to confront that happening, but the reality is it could, hopefully not, but it could. And if you put just a little bit of time and effort into it, you'll be better prepared to get off that action drive forward.
Exactly. I think it's about the preparedness and awareness of those possible obstacles. I know that often athletes do this when they're like a basketball player, for example. They'll envision themselves making the shot, but they'll also envision the challenges that might arise so that they know how to handle it in attempting their goals. So it makes so much sense. And I think a lot of people, when it comes to manifestation, when people talk about the like focus, that you already have it, that this is this, but they don't think about possibly those obstacles that might come around, and just creating that awareness and preparation for those obstacles, I think is powerful. So I love that you share that message. So talking about leadership, because I know that's your specialty, and obviously you endured, even in your service, you endured, as you said, the challenge with leadership. And so you learned a lot. So you speak heavily on self-leadership. So I would love if you could kind of share this message of how can somebody really hound down on that skill of self-leadership, because truly that's all what it's about, is that choice, as you mentioned early on. So self-leadership, what can you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, when I made my failures as a leader, it was because I was not effectively leading myself. And I think this is it's a common problem in leadership, almost everywhere. People have the misconception that as a leader, it's my job, to lead people or tell people what to do or get people to accomplish something. And that is all true. But the reality, the foundational level of leadership is, how well do you lead yourself? And I was not effectively leading myself. As a matter of fact, there were a lot of people out there that do the same. They say, hey, follow me because I have this title, or I have a badge, or I have, a rank on my collar, whatever it is. And that's not true leadership. It comes down to, I always ask people, hey, if you want to know where you stand as a leader, honestly answer the question, do your people follow you because they want to or because they have to? If they want to, you are definitely a very effective leader. And that would tell me that you really do a good job of leading yourself. You have structure and discipline, and you're motivated, and you're positive in the face of negativity. And you've laid that strong foundation of leadership. People will naturally want to follow you. That is the essence of self-leadership, or leadership by example, if you will. And I think there's a lot of people who have the wrong conception of that, hey, I'm going to be a good leader just because I can tell people what to do and can get things done. It'll work for a while, but ultimately you'll lose a lot of people. Individuals who don't have strong self-leadership, who don't have a lot of other nuances of leadership, I call them leadership wrecking balls. They get things done, but they leave a path of destruction behind them. And ultimately, the loyalty you have from the people you lead will not be there, because you are that leadership wrecking ball. They wonder, hey, you're going to get things done, but at what point are you just going to get rid of me, or not support me in your organization? So I teach 3 rules of leadership. They were the things that I built for myself after I failed. Rule number 1, lead yourself. If you're struggling with your team, if you're struggling with your family, these rules work in your family too, guys. Number 1, first and foremost, how well are you leading yourself? How well are you leading yourself? Physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, and spiritually. 5, yeah, I'm so good at math. I'm throwing up 6 fingers. 5 key areas of the Pentagon of Peak Performance is what I talk about. And if you do that, 1, you're going to be balanced as a leader. And 2, it's going to be natural that people want to follow you. If you physically take care of yourself, 90% of the time, your kids are going to physically take care of themselves. If you challenge yourself mentally, if you're a leader, if you are constantly seeking knowledge, your kids are going to do that. If you manage your emotions, if you have strong emotional leadership, if you're not lashing out or flying off the handle or being, crazy or vicious or violent, most likely your kids won't do that either. If you have strong social leadership, if you work hard to build those rings of influence around you, most likely your kids will do the same. If you have strong spiritual leadership, most likely your kids will do the same. Same thing within your organization. If you do all those things and you're successful, other people will want to emulate you. Thank you. Yeah. So rule number 2 is, how well do we lead others? 70% of leadership is rule number 1. And it leads itself. It makes it almost easier to lead others, because now they're following you because you're successful. So now it's just, hey, here's our vision. This is where we want to go. Now, how do I provide you the resources, the guidance, the training, the education, whatever you need to be successful? And then let them go do it. Build, enable your teams to trust. That's your ability to lead others. So give them those right and left limits, give them all the resources to be successful, and then set them free to go out there and do it, and praise them for crushing it and own it if things go wrong, definitely. And then rule number 3, you got to lead always. You can't pick and choose. When you're having a tough day, not a bad day, when you're having a tough day, recognize you still have to lead. You still have to lead when COVID hits. You still have to lead when supply chain problems are there. You still have to lead when staffing shortages are there. And guess what? If you go out and have a drink on the town, there are people still watching you as a leader. And this was a big failure I made. I wanted to pick and choose. So you have to lead always. So those are the 3 rules: lead yourself, lead others, lead always. If anything gets off track, always go back to yourself. Hey, how am I doing leading myself right now? You know what? I'm not doing a very good job with my physical leadership. Let me get back on course. And the good news is, it's never too late. I don't care how old you are. I don't care where you are in your life. It's never too late. I'm living proof, man. If I can come back and earn back respect and credibility in the SEAL teams after I made mistakes, anyone can do it. And don't get me wrong, there's some guys out there that don't like me still. They're like, oh, that's that guy that screwed up in Afghanistan. So what? Ignore the haters, focus on you, recognize if you're moving forward and doing good things, the people that are around you that recognize that, they will follow you, and you will be able to accomplish great things.
I love that. And how did you, just out of curiosity, how did you rebuild that credibility? Like, what were some of the steps you took? Was it just returning back to how you were leading yourself and your actions?
Absolutely. And focusing on that day in and day out. And seek out mentors, seek out people that are good leaders. If you're rebuilding yourself or you're rebuilding a company, find those mentors and find those good people that can help you. Recognize there will always be haters. I mean, it's the world we live in. I don't care how great you are. There's always going to be people. There are going to be detractors. One of my coaching clients just recently got elected to the board of education in his town, and super, super great, positive guy. And that was some of the things that they tried to attack him on. Like, we hate your positivity. I'm like,
whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
We be the light in the darkness, man. Ignore the darkness. But recognize, if you're coming back from mistakes like I was, you will encounter a lot more hate and a lot more negativity. It's human nature. Stay the course. Stay the course, believe in yourself, and just focus on one little step at a time. Every single day I focused on, okay, this is what we're doing today. Let me make sure I am 100% prepared to do this evolution. I'm aware of it, I've prepared for it, and I'm going to take action to execute it. Those are the components of the overcome mindset to be able to move forward. And I did that day in and day out. It took almost 2 years to win back a lot of guys in my troop that I had been assigned to. But ultimately it happened. And there will be breakthroughs. And that's pretty much what happened. I mean, in combat in Iraq, we had some pretty big missions where I made some good decisions. And guys said, hey, this guy's doing well. You know what? We'll follow.
Amazing. And I know you talk about this if you can't crawl, or sorry, if to crawl, walk, run, that it's this mindset that even if you can't yet run, you could crawl. And then once you get comfortable crawling, then you could walk, and so on and so forth. So it's basically taking one day at a time, but just keep taking the action forward and being accountable to what you say you're going to do, which is super important. So
Yep.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So much goodness. My goodness. I mean, I could go on and on, but I want people, of course, to grab your books. I will plug them in the show notes. You have your first book, which is The Trident, and then is it called Overcome Mindset? Is your second book?
Overcome.
Overcome.
Yep.
Perfect. So I'll plug that in the show notes. And then, of course, where can people find you and follow you and learn more about what you teach? Because there's so much goodness.
Yeah, Erica, thank you. JasonRedman.com is my website. So you can find me there. Down at the bottom, you will see my social media handles. Jason Redman WW. I rarely ever talk politics. It's my goal to only focus on leadership, resilience, positivity. How do you become the best version of yourself? So if you're looking for something different on social media, I do my best to deliver that. And then, we're doing different courses in September. I'm doing the Roger Up event in Chicago, Illinois. A lot of people are like, hey, how can I come see you? Most stuff I do is with private companies. Roger Up is a public event. Go to rogerupevent.com. And I'm also running another Overcome and Survive workshop the middle of September in North Carolina. It is a leadership, survival, and defense workshop. You know, we're living in a dangerous world. I mean, a lot of people who may own a gun, but they're not comfortable with it. And we teach you the basic skills. It's not, if you're already pretty advanced, this probably isn't the course for you. What I'm looking at is for the average American out there who wants to know basic levels of survival. I want you to be comfortable with a gun, that if somebody broke into your house, you would feel comfortable engaging them, understanding backstops, understanding if I had a malfunction that I can fix this malfunction, understanding if I have to shoot more bullets than what's in my one magazine, that you're comfortable doing a magazine change. Things like that is what we're teaching. Not only that, we're also teaching how to de-escalate a situation. So anyways, that's our Overcome and Survive workshop.
So that doesn't sound like for a beginner though. Some of those things, like I know how to shoot a gun, but I've never been taught I somewhat know how to fix a jam, but those are a little bit more advanced, like how to, de-escalate a situation, but that's awesome. So this is in person.
It is in person. So overcomeandsurvive.com. And it is it's basically a 2-day workshop. So you'll stay, and I've got some great SEAL instructor friends who help me, and other amazing people. We have women instructors. We have some super qualified women instructors also. So sometimes I feel I've met women that are like, oh, I'm a little intimidated by the guy instructors. Well, guess what? I have incredible women instructors also.
Perfect. And this is your first time doing this, or have you done this one before?
Our second time. We did the first one. It was a great success, and the second, it was only a 1-day workshop, and we were like, oh my God, it was too much. Oh, we're also teaching first aid. I have both special operation medics who are teaching high level. How do you put in a tourniquet? How do we pack a wound? How do we deal with breaks? And we have practical exercises on how to do these things, so that God forbid, if anything ever happened to your family, you know what to do. You will not be beholden to, oh my God, when is the ambulance going to be here? You can take care of yourself and your family. So overcomeandsurvive.com. Remarkable.
I'm so interested. I think that's so important that people take initiative to learn things on their own. Like if you want to be the man of the house, protect your family, and be able to hold that secure space to know what to do in case something happens, let's say, God forbid, this is perfect. I love this. It's so necessary. So thank you for putting something together like that. I love it. I'm going to
absolutely. Or the woman of the house. I mean, unfortunately, there's a lot of single women out there who are raising, single moms who are raising their kids in this dangerous world. Self-leadership, overcome mindset, awareness, preparation. Now you're ready to take action. God forbid if anything happens.
I love it. Sounds great. Thank you so much, Jason. So I am curious. So I always close off asking one powerful question, and I'm excited to hear what you'll share for this. So, if you were to share a piece of wisdom that you have learned in your life's journey, which you've been through many journeys, and it was just one piece of advice that you want to leave with people, what would that message be?
From a tremendous mentor of mine, a guy that saved my career, it's the foundation of everything I teach in leadership. People will follow you if you give them a reason to. And that is the heart and soul of leadership. That's really the essence of leading yourself. And don't think about, giving them a reason as telling them something to do. Think about it from within. Like, how do I set the example for others? Be a victor in this life. And that's about, getting up and driving forward, regardless of what it is, man. We need to get away from, I'm so tired of race and gender and all these things, man. We're human. When we want to talk about race, it's the human race. I don't care what your gender persuasion is. I don't care, man, woman,
Right.
homosexual, heterosexual, black, white. Just be great. Focus on how do we drive forward and help people in this life, and people will follow you.
Thank you for that. That's so perfect. So I want to also know, because I know that we're closing this off, we're wrapping this up, but I know you are strong in having a mission. So I'm curious, what is your mission in your life today, and how could people best support your mission that you are very passionate about, that you would just invite people to join you on?
I have a strong passion. So my mission is to help others be better. So that is definitely, I mean, when you get into my mission statement, it's to be an example and leadership, physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually. I want to be a good communicator. And I want to set that example that others want to follow. So hopefully my goal, my mission is when people spend time with me, they leave and they say, that guy made me better. Secondary to that, my mission is to continue to help military, law enforcement, and fire in many different aspects. Mental health, our suicide rates are off the chain. So how do we continue to help these guys and gals understand that, taking your life is not the answer. There's a lot of different roads out there. I'm working with Concussion Legacy Foundation. I'm getting ready to do a big swim in August 6th. I'm doing the GI Go, not GI Joe.
Oh, I was going to say that's your favorite. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said. But no, GI Go is an organization that helps our veterans transition from the military to the civilian world, and I think that's a hard transition. I think this is where a lot are getting lost. So if you want to check that out, check out the GI Go Navy SEAL swim that's happening August 6th, and we're raising money. I actually have my own Team Overcome, trying to raise $25,000. And then I'm going to go kick myself in the skull and go do this 3-mile swim and run and push-ups and pull-ups and all these things.
You got it. No problem. So I'll include that all in the show notes. It sounds amazing. And I just thank you so much for everything you're doing today. And, people like you are so needed, and needed for people, people that, again, have been in service, coming out of service, and really to transition and having more a purpose and a passion for something new in their life. And because your career ended early because of what happened, you could speak from that angle. So I just thank you for all you're doing. And just, there's so much value just taken from this conversation. So thank you, Jason. I appreciate you. Such an honor.
Erica, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
So welcome.